don't you feel that there are huge numbers of Labour voters who will simply feel betrayed and left behind if that happens?
Well, the evidence is actually that there are 3 times as many Labour voters who feel betrayed by the position of not having a position than there would be. But I want to make a different point. In the end, we're in this mess because each party has tried to calculate what to do about Brexit according to internal party politics. That's how David Cameron ended up in the referendum in the first place. That's why Jeremy Corbyn is sitting on the fence. The Brexit issue is now a wrecking ball at the constitution of the country, at the political structures of the country, because each of the main parties has been thinking about its own sectional interest, and the public can see it. That's how you end up with the situation that we're in.
If you were still back in your old constituency of South Shields, which voted to leave the EU, would you be going back there and saying to people, I'm terribly sorry, but you were wrong, and we have to rethink this?
I would be saying you have a democratic right to make sure that the Brexit that is now on offer, which wasn't promised 3 years ago, is available. And I want to call attention to this. I would be following the neighbouring MPs to South Shields in Sunderland, Bridget Phillipson and Julie Elliott. I'd be following Anna Turley in Redcar. I'd be following Phil Wilson in Sedgefield. Those are all MPs today representing quote-unquote Leave seats, although they would say they're Labour seats. And they have bravely said, look, because the Brexit that you were promised in 2016 is not available, because no one ever thought a no-deal Brexit was the issue, you deserve the right for democratic reasons, as well as social and economic reasons, to have a final say on whether we go ahead with this.
You haven't given up on British politics and the Labour Party, have you?
Well, I haven't given up on Britain, Andrew. I'm a British citizen.
No, sure.
So
but
I feel
a lot of people listening to your views would say the trouble is, these days, back here, as a new Labour figure, you're kind of politically homeless. But it sounds to me like you're still very much engaged in the Labour Party and still feel like a Labour Party member who would like to have a voice.
Well, I'm one of the few Labour Party members, I think, who actually voted Labour in the European election campaign. So I have to say, not because of the position of the leadership, but because of the position of the 2 MEPs who were running on what I thought was a very clear ticket. But look, this notion that our constitution, the integrity of the United Kingdom, never mind our economy and society, are under threat from this Brexit decision is real. And I go back to that very simple point. Hang on, let me make this clear. If you're buying a house, you get the survey done. If the survey shows there's subsidence, you're not forced to buy the house. You can have a final decision. And that's why I think, for democratic reasons as well as economic reasons, it's the right thing to do.
Can I just make a point about Jeremy Corbyn? Because people say, he's this very ideological figure, but perhaps actually he's a more Wilsonian figure, and he's been very cleverly playing party management, playing one side against the other side. And, the Peterborough by-election, it has not been a disaster for the Labour Party. Up to now, he's done it rather cleverly.
Well, it's a very good point, but it's not so clever to end up with 14% in the European elections. We haven't had 14% Labour vote in a national election since 1910, when we only fought 50 seats out of 600.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look so clever. And remember, Jeremy Corbyn did say, I'm the man of clarity and principle, and you count on me to tell you what I say. I would say this, that not just for electoral reasons, actually to appeal to Remainers and Leavers, the politicians are honour bound to stop playing with the unicorns. There isn't a jobs first Brexit, just as there isn't a GATT 24 option for the Tories.
What's your message? Caroline Flynn's going to be sitting in that chair fairly shortly, to those Labour MPs who say, don't break faith with Labour Leave voters. Try and get a deal. It's still possible to get some kind of deal which will help jobs and so forth, getting out of the EU. No deal will be a disaster, but also no Brexit. Simply ignoring that referendum would be a democratic outrage.
My first message to Caroline, I saw her before the programme, is one of honour. She's a friend. I respect her, and the first thing I said to her was, how's the family doing? So it's important to say that. I think my message would be this. Look, the arguments that you're making against a second referendum, that it will prolong the agony, that it will fuel the far right, that it will divide the country, those are precisely the arguments against the deals that are on offer now. Every single deal that's being promoted, either a no deal or the Theresa May deal or a version of it, that's only the beginning of the negotiations, because the difficult negotiations are still to come. The far right is already being fueled by the failure to address this in an open and honest way. And as for the Labour voters, she and I know that Labour voters are voting Labour not because of the Europe issue. They're still voting Labour because they want to know whether their jobs, their health service, and the safety in their community is the key issue. Okay. And I respect Caroline completely for the openness and honesty of her opinion, but I also point to the large number of Labour MPs representing similar seats who are confident that you can appeal across that divide.
David Miliband, it's been great fun.